Welcome back, everybody. Today I wanted to do kind of a sillier video. This is a reaction. If you're not familiar with this guy here, this is Big Juicy, who is a fairly large YouTuber, and he's been around for a long time. He doesn't really do, educational stuff. It's mostly his channel is just him being silly with his friends. But I wanted to do a video reacting to something he put out last month called Literally the Best Thing Ever Made. And it is a video all about his love of horseshoe crabs. Anytime that people want to show any interest in arthropods, I'm all for it. If you aren't familiar with horseshoe crabs, they're not actually crabs. They're a type of chelicerate, so they're more closely related to spiders and scorpions than the crustaceans. But I figured we'd watch this video and see what he has to say.
About today, and you probably figured it out by now, right? We're going to talk about the most perfect thing ever made.
Wow, I have really wanted to feature a horseshoe crab on the Big Juicy channel.
Are horseshoe crabs dangerous? Let's find out. No, not really.
No, horseshoe crabs aren't dangerous. They don't have stingers or even really an ability to bite like you saw here. They do have this tail called a telson, but it's not like it can sting or anything. It's just their tail, which they can use to flip over or help swim, things like that. So they're not at all dangerous. You'll see these a lot on the East Coast of the United States if you're from the US. For North America, this is the range. So it's all over the East Coast of the United States and the Gulf Coast. You will find one species of horseshoe crabs. There aren't that many species of horseshoe crabs still alive. These are a really ancient group. Once upon a time, there were many kinds of horseshoe crabs. In fact, we know of over 60 from the fossil record, but nowadays there's only, I believe, 4 species left. So if you go out on the beach at night, you will frequently find these guys along the East Coast.
God's perfect little creature. First, let's look at like the evolution of a horseshoe crab, okay? So here I have some lovely examples. The horseshoe crab as we know it today literally is the same as like 480 million years ago. Nothing's changed. He's still that freaky little fucked up alien dinner plate scorpion monster creature that scuttles along the floor, okay? These things are they're fucking perfect. They're beautiful. I mean, dude, come on.
So yeah, the horseshoe crabs are one of the earliest chelicerates. So this is just pulled off Wikipedia. These are the broad strokes groups of the chelicerata. So the chelicerata are creatures with little chelicerae, which are kind of modified mouthparts or fangs, kind of like the spiders. So the horseshoe crabs are up here, the Xiphosaura. They are one of the most primitive chelicerates, and they've largely remained unchanged. The other chelicerates that you might be more familiar with are like the scorpions and the daddy longlegs and the spiders and ticks and mites, although there's a lot of other lesser or less popular chelicerates like the whip scorpions and the tailless whip scorpions and things like that. But largely speaking, these Xiphosaura, the horseshoe crabs, are mostly unchanged. These are one of the few aquatic chelicerates that are still alive. It is very likely that the chelicerates originated in the sea and then came onto land where they evolved into their other forms like the scorpions and the whip scorpions and the spiders and things like that.
They're just so cool. There's a cool little dude. It's like if you gave a rock scorpion arms. You give a rock scorpion arms and a little tail. And just in case you thought they couldn't get any better, you can milk them. Being able to milk something is kind of like, I would say, a sign of any good species. Any good species you can milk for something. You can't milk an ant. What are your ants fucking good for? Ants don't do anything. Ants are just annoying and then they die. You milk a cow.
Ants actually do the milking. So these are ants with aphids. And ants will actually attend to their aphids, kind of like how humans tend to cattle, and they milk the aphids for honeydew. So the aphids feed on the sap from plants, but it comes shooting out of the plants at high pressure. So aphids have this modified stomach, which allows the sugar syrup to pass through them so that they don't explode from the pressure, and it comes out their back end. The ants will milk the aphids for this sugar syrup and take it back to their hives or take it back to their colonies.
So if you look really closely, you can see it has a fat rack right there on its soft underbelly. Unfortunately, though, you can't actually like milk them per se in the happy, silly, kind of memey way that you'd hope it is. You see, they're full of this forbidden blue milkshake-like substance that we happen to use in high-grade medical fields and stuff. Could you imagine you just happen to be that guy who accidentally has fucking blue blood full of copper.
Yeah, so you don't milk them. You are actually bleeding the horseshoe crabs. And like you said, this copper-based blood is used heavily in the manufacturing of vaccines because it can be used to test for contamination within the vaccines themselves to make sure that there's no bacteria in there.
Copper. Don't let the crackheads know it's blue because of copper, okay? Because then we're gonna fucking run out of horseshoe crabs. So yeah, here is a horseshoe crab milking station.
This looks terrible. So I guess they cut off their tails and then bleed out the hemocoel inside.
A bunch of horseshoe crabs getting milked. Their milk is worth, it's blood, by the way. Their blood is worth $60,000 per gallon. Name a creature that you can milk a gallon of shit out of that is worth $60,000 a gallon. I was gonna say Elon Musk, but he hands that shit out for free to anyone on Twitter with a check mark, it seems like. He's got like baby mamas tweeting at him and shit. Elon, our son's sick! Elon, I'm pregnant with your 37th child, please! No, there's nothing. It's just horseshoe crabs. Horseshoe crabs are full of milk.
I think actually scorpions are more valuable. You can milk scorpions for their venom in order to make scorpion antivenom, and I think it's way more expensive than that. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, but I believe generally speaking, animal venoms are way more expensive. But leave a comment if you know, but I think things like spider venom, snake venom, and scorpion venom are like $1 million a gallon or something insane.
Shake. And if you're fast enough, you are allowed to drink it. Basically, their immune system is this type of immune system where it's not like ours. It doesn't like learn anything. It's not like a smart immune system. Just whenever anything enters its body, it just makes a instant little jelly prison around it. A literal jelly prison. So it doesn't take the time to like learn and adapt so that it can have an immune response. It just sees something and is like, cover that guy in jelly.
So that is how arthropod immune systems work. So with insects, for instance, they don't produce antibodies like mammals do, which is what he's talking about when he says immune systems that learn. So like with humans, when you get sick, your body adapts to that pathogen and will produce antibodies in order to target that pathogen. And later on, you already have those antibodies. If you get infected again, your body shuts down the infection really quickly because of these antibodies. Arthropods don't do that. Like with insects, they produce melanin. So what the cells will do is kind of glob, or their blood cells will kind of glob around the invading bacteria or viruses or parasites or whatever it is that's in their blood, kind of gelatinize around it, and then they melanize. So they produce melanin in the blood, which then hardens and kind of poisons the parasite. This is useful. It's broad spectrum. It can kind of target anything that's in the blood. The problem is you don't have learning, which generally speaking for insects isn't an issue, or for arthropods in general, because they don't have very long lives. So like with humans, if you're going to live for 80 years, it's useful to be able to learn what the pathogens in your environment are. If you're only going to live for a couple months at most, it's probably not super important. But the downside is that this melanization process can actually kill the arthropod. So melanin is quite toxic when it's in your blood. And so if you overproduce this melanin in an immune response, you can actually melanize yourself to death, and insects can die from this response. There you go.
So basically how it works is that they catch these horseshoe crabs from the wild, and they hook them up to these milking machines, and they drain 30% of their blood. These little fellows aren't like, there's not like a mob farm for horseshoe crabs, I don't think. I think most of our horseshoe crab milk comes from catching horseshoe crabs, like big pods of them. I don't know if they come in pods or if it's like a flock. It could be a gaggle as well, but basically they catch a bunch of them and drain out 30% of their blood. These boys get snapped.
So how they catch them is you just go to the beach. Horseshoe crabs will occasionally have like a mass beaching event where they all come on shore to mate. And I think it has, I'd have to look it up, but I think it has something to do with the moon. Again, go to the comments if you know more about horseshoe crab migration than me, which is probably pretty easy. But they do occasionally like have a mass event where they emerge all at once.
Also, a lot of people seem to think that horseshoe crabs don't have eyes, and that these little things right here on their fucking domes aren't eyes. Like there's some sort of like vesidual organ. Did I say it right? Oh my God, I did. Like there's some sort of remnant from like an old evolution, and then they don't use them anymore. Like it was eyes, because this part is like armored, right? Bro, horseshoe crabs have 10 eyes. They have 10 eyeballs.
Yeah, these are eyes. And then they have simple eyes kind of on the underside and on the front of their carapace here. And I believe they have photoreceptors on their tail as well. So a lot of it is just being able to detect light. They're not going to be seeing out of those other eyes as well. It's kind of the same with scorpions and spiders. They have spiders have 2 main eyes and then 6 kind of supplementary photoreceptor eyes. And scorpions, their eyes are just very, very simple. They don't have that complex compound eye, and they don't see as well. Which is why scorpions walk around with their pincers out front in order to feel around.
Complex. And then they have ones on the underside, their tail, they have fucking eyes everywhere.
Like I said.
Scary. It adds more to the scary lore of the horseshoe crab, the dark and mysterious lore of these fucked up little creatures. And through my research, I saw multiple people saying that these 2 compound eyes on the top of its head that are capable of seeing like shapes and shit were only evolved to help these guys all right, literally just so that they could fuck other horseshoe crabs. I'm not sure what you expected from a creature with a brain the size of a grain of rice, but bro literally evolved so he could fuck better, which is kind of crazy. As we're getting towards the end of my horseshoe crab rant.
So that's not uncommon for arthropods. If you think about what a horseshoe crab's life is like, a lot of what it is doing is crawling around the bottom of the ocean, kind of being a bottom feeder, so it doesn't really need to see that much. And it's often in an area that is either low in light or it's buried, so there's no light. And then when it comes up to the shore, it's frequently on shore at night. So it's not like it needs its eyes for a lot. Arthropods have a lot of other sensory abilities, so they have really good sense of taste and smell, so they don't necessarily need to be able to see what they're doing. When it comes to mating, however, you do need to be able to see things like which way the male or female is facing, where exactly they're positioned, things like that.
I would like to point out that horseshoe crabs aren't crabs at all, even a little bit, and they're more related closely to scorpions and spiders, which is really fucking obvious if you just look at them. The claws, the fucking little hands, little pinchers on the horseshoe crab are almost exactly the same as what you would see on a scorpion, which is fucking foul, and I hate that. And
so yeah, I mentioned this earlier, they're chelicerates. And when I say chelicerate, you might be confused as to what I'm talking about. So the chelicerates in general, including the spiders and scorpions and things like that, have 12 legs that are modified either for grasping or biting or walking. And with the horseshoe crabs, swimming. So with the horseshoe crabs, you have 6 sets of legs. So you have the first set here. This is 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the first set, these are the chelicerae. So these are modified legs. Actually, I mean, I believe they're associated with the second antennae of crustaceans and not associated with anything on the insects. But this first set of legs, these chelicerae, and this is where the name chelicerata comes from, are present in all the chelicerates. In spiders, these little pincers are what become the fangs. But in other chelicerates, they're more like little crab claws that they use to tear at food and put it into their mouth. So they are modified mouth parts in all the chelicerates, but in spiders, they're the big fangs. In most chelicerates, this next set of legs here too are referred to as palps, and they're generally smaller in other things. So these are the legs that stick out. On a tarantula, these legs right here are the palps. So like these smaller legs, and here they're much larger on the horseshoe crab. Most chelicerates use these for feeling around. The horseshoe crab does use it a little bit for walking, but they're modified here to grasp onto their mate. So that's the primary use of the little palps. And then sets 3 through 6, these are the walking legs. These are the legs that you associate with the 8 legs of the spider or the 8 legs of the tarantula. That's these horsets here. So these are the legs primarily used for getting around. And this back leg here with all these kind of fan brush-like structures, these are their primary swimming legs. So that's how kind of you can see the body plan related to scorpions and spiders. This section here on the back, these are the gills. So that's how they breathe. And then you have the tail, the telson on the very back.
yeah, they come from like the same like thingy mabobber, you know, they evolved from like the same like pile of spit. But here's the difference.
The evolutionary tree.
Horseshoe crabs obviously aren't insects. Let me point out the number of insect species that there are, ladies and gentlemen. There is 1.7 million known insect species on the planet Earth. That's a lot. That's a lot. Now, the horseshoe crabs belong to the
Up to 30 million estimate. So these are insects that we haven't identified yet.
Merostomata. The horseshoe crabs belong to the Merostomata species. Guess how many of them that there are in this thing? So we have 1.7 million insects, and there's 4. There's 4 of them. Need I say more? With insects, they are fucking trying everything.
So yeah, there's 4 left. So there's only 4 species left. All of the rest have gone extinct. So he mentioned the Merostomata. So actually, the order that the horseshoe crabs belong to are the Xiphosaura. The Merostomata is this larger group. So down here you have the Eurypterids, and the Eurypterids are now all extinct, but once upon a time they were a large group of Merostomata that were in the ocean, and these were known as the sea scorpions, and they could get very, very large, so like up to 10 feet long, much bigger than a person, and we only know them from the fossil record.
Adorable. Look at this guy.
We bought this horseshoe crab. And today we're going to be trying to find him to see if he's still alive. About a week ago, I saw him doing laps around the tank.
Look at that little guy, man.
But recently, I have not seen him. Which means he must be hiding under the sand in a pretty deep spot in the tank. So I got to looking in the sand, and when I got to the corner, there he was.
Yeah, so this is why they don't need their eyes as much.
He started running around really fast the second I got him out of the sand. I thought he was going to grow.
As long as you don't look under the hood, they're actually really cute. You just can't look under the hood. Horseshoe crabs literally just have not changed for so long, and I just thought that was cool, and I thought that I should yap about it and tell all you about it. I thought I should.
And I'm glad that you have brought some attention to these arthropods. They're really cool. So with that, I will talk to you guys later, and I'll link to his original video in the description.